Hello everyone, welcome back. Good morning to all. So in this video lecture, we'll be talking about reproduction in flowering plant. That is our next chapter, alright? So first chapter we have completed. We have seen the basic things about the types and the process of sexual reproduction in organism. So in this chapter, we'll be talking about in details about the sexual reproduction in case of flowering plant. So when we talk about flowering plant, what does that mean? Which plant, which group of plant? Angiospermic or gymnospermic? That is angiospermic, right? So we'll be talking about the sexual reproduction of flowering plant in case of angiospermic plant, that is, flower. So first what we need to know is what are the reproductive structure in case of angiospermic plant. We all know that is flower, right? In flower there is a male and female reproductive structure present. So first thing what we need to know is about the flower. Okay, so flower are the reproductive structure in case of angiospermic plant, right? Write it down. They are reproductive structure in angiospermic plant. So we are basically talking about angiospermic plant in this chapter. Okay, so flower considered as reproductive structure. Okay, so one important characters that you need to know about flower is flower are considered as modified shoot, okay, or modified stem. Okay, you write it down. Flower are considered as modified shoot or stem, right? Whatever the structure that is present above the ground in a plant body, we call that structure as shoot, right? Shoot. So they are the modified version of shoot or modified version of stem. Flower, remember? Okay, sometimes question asks for 1 mark. Okay, remember, flower are the modified reproductive structure of shoot or stem. That's it. Next, what we need to know about the structure of flower. A typical angiospermic flower. We will see a diagram of typical angiospermic flower, and we will label the name and we will classify the flower. Okay. So next, what we need to know is we need to see the structure of flower. You have already seen the structure of flower in a practical class. Here we will be drawing again, and I will label all those names and we will differentiate depending on their nature. Okay, so we will see a typical structure of angiospermic flower. So there is a structure which holds all the reproductive organ in a flower. We call that structure as receptacle. Okay, so it holds, it connects all the reproductive structure. There is a female reproductive structure. What is the name of female reproductive structure? It consists of the topmost part, what we call the topmost part, stigma, right? And the long filament below stigma, we call that structure as style. And the lowermost part which connect with the receptacle, we call that structure as ovary. So female reproductive organ consists of stigma, style and ovary. We have already seen this, right, in practical. So together what we call stigma, style and ovary, together we call as pistil, right? Pistil is nothing but a female reproductive structure. It consists of stigma, style and ovary. Okay, so next, and the biologically term that given to the female reproductive structure are called as what? Are called as gynoecium. Okay, so don't get confused. Gynoecium is a female reproductive structure, as well as pistil is also a female reproductive structure. Okay, the biologically term is called as gynoecium. It consists of stigma, style and ovary. Together we call it as a pistil. This is female reproductive structure. So next to female reproductive structure, we have a male reproductive structure. Okay, male reproductive structure. Now the number of male or the female reproductive structure varies depending on the type of flower. Okay, here in this diagram I am drawing a bisexual flower, where in one flower it contains both male and female. Okay, so I am drawing now a male reproductive structure. Now male reproductive structure consists of what? The topmost part, what we call this structure, we call it as a anther, right? We call it as a anther. And below anther there's a long filament structure, we call that structure as a filament, right? So it consists of anther and filament. Now anther and filament together, anther and filament together, what we call anther and filament together we call as a stamen, right? So anther and filament together we call it as a stamen. This is male reproductive structure. The biological term of male reproductive structure we call it as a androecium, right? Androecium. So androecium is nothing but a male reproductive structure. It consists of anther and filament together we call it as a stamen. So this is male. Okay, so next there is a cover structure which protect the male and female reproductive organ, and that structure is attractive in nature. They are colorful, right? There is a covering structure which protects the male and female. What are those structures? What we call? We call that structure as corolla. Corolla. It is colorful, it is attractive in nature, and it protects the cover male and female inside of it, right? Why they are attractive? Why they are colorful? Because to attract insect. Why? For the pollination. What is pollination? Pollination is transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma, right? We will discuss this in our next topic, in this chapter only. So those structures are called as corolla. Now here the corolla word means all those structures together. We call it as a corolla. How many structure I have drawn here? 1, 2 and 3 structure I have drawn. Now the number of corolla again varies depending on the types of flower. Okay, I am drawing only 3 corolla here. Now together we call it as a corolla. 1, 2 and 3 I am drawing in this diagram. I have drawn 3 corolla. But if we consider one structure, suppose I have considered this one structure, we call it as a petal. Okay, petal. It's the same thing, don't get confused. Petal and corolla. If I consider only one structure, we call it as a petal. Together we call it as a corolla. That's it. Alright. So next to corolla we have a small leafy like structure which is attached with a receptacle. This structure are known as calyx. Calyx. Again the number of calyx varies depending on the type of the flower. I'm drawing here 2 calyx, but the number varies. It may be 4, 5, okay, or 3. So those structures are known as calyx. Again calyx, together we call it as a calyx. Here I have drawn 2. If I consider those 2, we call it as a calyx. If I consider one structure only, we call it as a sepal. Okay, so don't get confused here. Same thing, calyx and sepal are the same thing, but if I consider one specific calyx, we call it as a sepal. Together we call it as a calyx. So these are the overall structure of a typical angiospermic flower. Okay, don't forget to mention the figure name, complete flower. Now sometimes question asks when a flower are considered as a complete flower for 1 mark. When flower is considered as a complete flower? When? Only when a flower shows all those structure, that is male reproductive structure, androecium, female reproductive structure, gynoecium, calyx and corolla. Okay, then only that flower can be called it as a complete flower. Alright, so these are the typical structure of angiospermic flower. Next we will classify flower on the basis of their nature. Okay, we will classify flower on the basis of their nature, and it can be classified into, I'm writing below here, it can be classified into 2 types. Next we will classify flower on the basis of their nature, and it is classified into 2 types. Number 1 is known as accessory flower. Which structure are considered as accessory flower? Calyx and corolla are considered as accessory flower. Accessory flower means they just help in giving the protection of male and female reproductive structure. Alright, they do not take part in reproduction process. They just help in giving the protection of male and female reproductive structure. Who gives protection? That is calyx and corolla. It gives protection, okay, to male and female reproductive structure. That's why they are considered as accessory flower. Remember, the next one is known as essential flower. Now, which structure are considered as essential flower? That is gynoecium and androecium. Okay, you can write pistil or stamen. So when we talk about androecium, that means it is pistil. The pistil means anther and filament. And when we talk about gynoecium, that means, when we talk about androecium, that means stamen. Stamen means anther and filament. And when we talk about gynoecium, that means pistil. And pistil means stigma, style and ovary. So androecium and gynoecium are considered as essential flowers. Essential means they take part in reproduction process. Accessory means they help in giving protection of male and female reproductive structure. So remember those names. Alright. So this is a typical structure of angiospermic flower. Remember. And remember those 2 names. Accessory flowers and essential flower. Don't forget. Alright, so next we will see the structure of anther along with their types. So next we will see anther, structure and types. Anther, we will see those structure, anther. That is our male reproductive structure. That means stamen. Stamen means androecium. So next we will see anther. Anther structure we will see. So you have seen a structure like this, right? This is anther. Now this structure we call it as a lobe. Okay, lobe, L-O-B-E, and I have drawn 2 lobes here. In most angiospermic plant we find 2 lobes. In some angiospermic flower, the anther also contain 1 lobe also, but in most cases we find 2 lobes. Okay, so in this case I have drawn 2 lobes. Those small round like structure which are attached together we call it as a lobe. Okay, now depending on the number of lobes we classify anther into 2 types. Okay, on the basis of number of lobe, we classify anther into two types, that is monothecous and dithecous. Okay, depending on the number of lobe, we classify anther into two types, monothecous and dithecous. Okay, in most angiospermic plant, in most angiospermic flower, we find two lobes, but in some cases we also find one lobe. So if the anther contain one lobe only, we call it as a monothecous. It contains one lobe. Okay, if the anther contain two lobe, we call it as a dithecous. Mono means one. Here the word theca, it means lobe. Okay, here di means two. Thecus, the word thecus means lobe. Again, it is a Greek word. Okay, all the biology name are written in Greek word, right? We have discussed in first year because it is considered as that language, Latin language. So depending on the number of lobe, it is classified into two types, monothecous and dithecous. Mono means one lobe, dithecous means two lobe. That's it. Example, I'll give you homework, so do it by yourself. Write few example of monothecous anther and dithecous anther. Okay, so this is our first classification. So next classification of anther we will discuss on the basis of the attachment of filament with anther. So we have seen this structure, that is two lobe, we call it as a bilobe, and there is an attachment of filament with it. Now how this filament is attached with anther? Now there is a special tissue present inside of it, inside of anther, which connects filament with it. Okay, it is present inside anther. We cannot see externally, it is present internally. There is a tissue, special types of tissue that holds filament with it. Those tissue are called as sterile connective tissue. Okay, there is a special tissue present inside the anther which holds the filament with it. Those tissue are known as sterile connective tissue. Sterile means they do not take part in reproduction. Connective, it connects. What it connects? It connects filament, and it is a tissue. Okay, sterile connective tissue. Remember this term. There is a tissue present inside the anther which connect with the filament. Okay, so now we will classify anther on the basis of the attachment of filament with it. Okay. I will show you with diagram. So first, type of anther. Now in this case, if the filament is attached at the basal region of the anther, if the filament is attached at the basal part of the anther, we call that anther as basifix anther. Okay, if the filament is connect at the basal region of the anther, we call it as a basifix anther. Next classification, if the filament connect at the dorsal part of the anther, we call that anther as dorsifix anther. Okay, dorsifix anther. Next classification, again this classification we are discussing on the basis of the attachment of filament with anther. So next classification, if the filament connects all over the surface of the anther, if the filament connects all over the surface of the anther, we call that anther as adenate anther. Okay, adenate anther. So when you write all those names, write one point of it. Okay, give a definition. Okay, see your diagram and write it by yourself. See, if the filaments connect at the at the basal part of the anther, we call that anther as basifix. In this case, if the filaments connect at dorsal part of the anther, we call dorsifix. In this case, if the filament connect all over the surface of the anther, we call it as a adenate anther, right? Now, one more anther, a special type of anther that we find. In this case, the anther is elongated shape and it is tangental in nature. When air blows, okay, it moves. And when it moves, the pollen grains are released with the help of wind. They pass and it enters into the stigma. Okay. In this case, the anther is elongated in shape and they are tangental in nature. Such type of anther are called as versatile anther. Okay, in this case, the anther is long, elongated, and they're tangental in nature, and the filament connects with it, and those anther are known as versatile anther. Versatile anther, it is a characteristic features of anemophilous flower. Now, what is anemophilous? Anemophilous is the process where the pollination takes place by wind. Okay. Anemophilous are those flowers where the pollination takes place by wind. Those flowers are called as anemophilous. Example, mention few example by yourself. Homework. Okay. So these are the classification of anther on the basis of their attachment. Right. So we have seen the structure of flower, and we have mentioned those two names. We have classified flower into accessory and essential. Remember those names, and then we have seen the structure of anther. So in the next video lecture, we will see the detailed structure of anther. Okay, we will do the TS of anther, and we will all observe the detailed structure of anther. Okay, in the next video.